My name is Jeffrey. I'm the community manager for Yelp here in Salt Lake City, and you're listening to the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Episode 36 of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. I'm the host. My name is Chris Hollifield. I am your guide from episode to episode as I lead you on that journey through our beautiful city, introducing you to locals, professionals, musicians, authors, artists, anybody and everybody, people that are making a difference and just making the city what it is today. Today's guest is Jennifer Booth from over at FrayedThreads.com, the fashion blogger. Sat down with her and we talked about fashion and talked about her blog and what kind of got her there. But before I jump into that interview, I want to tell you about our sponsor, Salt Lake City Concerts, saltlakeCityConcerts.net. It's where you're going to want to go to find out about all of the upcoming concerts and events and all of that going on here in the Salt Lake City area. There's a couple of shows that I want to mention and tell you about that are coming up that I think are of worth and listening in. Anyways, this upcoming Tuesday at In the Venue is Trapped, Acidic, Rickshaw, and Means Nothing. Looks like you could still get tickets for that. You can buy them online. And then Thursday is the Reverend Horton Heat at In the Venue. They're playing with one of my favorite local bands, Folk Hogan. I think we talked about this show back in episode 25 with Folk Hogan. We talked about how excited they were that they get to play with the Rev. So check them out. That's this upcoming Thursday, the 24th at In the Venue. And it looks like you might still be able to get some tickets for that show as well. Again, saltlakeCityConcerts.net is where you can find all the information as well as connect with them on Facebook, facebook.com/SLC Concerts. And we're located at iamsaltlake.com. That's going to connect you with our show. You can listen to the podcast directly online. You can connect with us. Give me a call. Our voicemail, or my voicemail for the podcast, is 385-202-5926. I'd love to hear some feedback. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the podcast and kind of where you feel it's going, especially if you're a longtime listener. If you've listened since some of the beginning episodes and kind of seeing where it's gone, I'd love to hear your feedback and what you're thinking of that. Also, my email is iamsaltlake@gmail.com. You know, a really fun thing that I've been doing from time to time on Twitter, and I just posted this a few hours ago. My Twitter name is iamsaltlake, and I posted a question. Let's see where that question is. I posted, what's one of your favorite things about living in Salt Lake City? And I got some really cool responses here that I thought would be fun to share on today's episode of the I Am Salt Lake. And let's just kind of go through them here real quick. My first response was from a guy goes by the name Mr. Happy 5555. His response was skiing, mountain biking, the Four Seasons, and beautiful women. And Four Seasons. I mean, that's great. Steve German replied with the Red Iguana, one of my favorite places to eat, and hopefully I'd love to get them on the podcast. Thugless _ responds with Twilight concerts, everything in the mountains, Babely ladies, and the Wing Coop. It looked like there was a few more for Red Iguana, and one of my favorite ones was what was that response? Smog. It's awesome, but really it's making our people jealous with pictures of our mountains. And David Wilbur mentioned the scenery, and the majority of the people that live here are good people. That is what makes living in Salt Lake City awesome. Speaking of David Wilbur, he's a co-creator and co-host of the Taxi Squad show. It's a new podcast coming up here in the Salt Lake City area, the Taxi Squad podcast. I believe he mentioned that their release date for their first episode is going to be the 16th of February. So I'm going to try to get him as well as anybody else involved with that podcast onto an upcoming episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. So anyways, again, our website is iamsaltlake.com. You can connect with me, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, you can listen. We're also on the Windows Phone Network. If you have a Windows phone, if you're one of the lucky few, you can find us on there. We love to hear feedback, reviews. Leave us a 5-star review and a quick review on iTunes. That really helps out bumping out our show ratings. And it helps get in front of more people. So anyways, again, thank you for listening. Episode 36 of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. I'm going to jump right into the conversation that I had with Jennifer Booth. Again, she's from Frayed Threads blog. We talked about fashion tips, and everything, some Salt Lake City fashion as well. So anyways, thank you for listening in. Episode 36. Here's my conversation with Jennifer Booth over at frayedthreads.com. I want to welcome you to the podcast, and thank you for sitting down and talking with me about what you do and about your blog. First of all, I mean, let's start right from the beginning, and we can mention it at the end. Your website is, go ahead, and what is your website that you do?
It is www.frayed-threads.com.
Excellent. And so, and I'll put all the links at iamsaltlake.com under the episode show notes. And it's Jennifer Booth. I'm going to start a little bit kind of about you, and then about your blog, and about your about fashion blogging, and kind of jump all over the place. You grew up in the area. You're from Tooele, right?
Yes, I am from Tooele. Oh, and by the way, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Very welcome.
I am from Tooele. I grew up in Tooele. I've moved around a little bit. I lived in Cedar City for college, and I've lived in Salt Lake, but somehow keep ending up back out in Tooele.
What did you go to school for writing at all, or?
I attended Southern Utah University for 3 years, majoring in journalism, and then I quit because I couldn't decide what I wanted to do with my life. Journalism is kind of a dying field, so it's definitely taken a different direction over the last few years, and I think I might like to get back into that in a fashion sense.
Let's talk a little bit about your blog. How would you describe it to somebody who, say, you met on the street, or a coworker that hasn't had an opportunity to look at it before? How would you describe it?
I specialize in local Utah fashion and trend education, basically educating people who don't know anything about style, about trends, and how to be stylish and fashionable.
Okay, excellent. And what got you into blogging? What inspired you or made you do that leap into actually starting a blog?
Well, I started blogging as a junior in high school with an angsty blog called Evil Laughter, and eventually moved into fashion blogging, I think in 2009, when I came across a blog called Late Afternoon. She's a girl based in California. Her name is Liz. She writes her own fashion blog, and she's amazing, beautiful. And her style inspired me to learn more about fashion, and then take what I learned and turn it into a blog for people who didn't know anything about fashion.
So when did you start? You might have mentioned that. When did you start your blog approximately?
Frayed Threads, I started it in 2009.
About 2009. Were you ever into like LiveJournal or anything like that? Do you remember? I mean, I know it's still there, LiveJournal, but I used to be pretty big into LiveJournal.
I've never really used LiveJournal. I started on WordPress and moved over to, well, I started originally on Blogger and then moved to WordPress and then moved back to Blogger. So
just out of curiosity, it has nothing to do with I'm assuming you like Blogger better than WordPress as a platform, or?
Right now I do. I've been considering making the jump back to WordPress. Before buying my own domain, Blogger was a lot easier to manage my template and my layout. But now that I have my own domain, I feel like using WordPress would maybe allow me a little bit more customization.
Excellent. Yeah, I use WordPress for the podcast website, and so that's why I was curious. That's all I'm familiar with. So, anyways, so you've been doing the blog for a few years now. What's been the most rewarding thing with doing a blog?
Meeting other bloggers in my niche, other fashion bloggers here in Utah. Jet Moody, April Goldstone, Rebecca of Rebecca Hearts, making new friends and making those connections and realizing that I'm not the only fashion-obsessed person in Utah. It's been very rewarding for me and fulfilling as a person.
Yeah. So how many fashion bloggers are there probably in the area?
In the area, dozens that I know of, probably hundreds. There are a lot of fashion bloggers, a lot more than I ever expected there to be in the Salt Lake area. They have a group down in Provo as well, and I know there are some up in Park City. They're everywhere in Utah. It's just kind of its own little subculture that nobody really knows about, but it's actually really popular.
Interesting. I mean, obviously, I have no knowledge whatsoever when it comes to fashion blogging, so I'm learning a lot about it as I talk to you. Do you find that with having so many fashion bloggers in the same area, it's a competition, or is it more that you work together? Do you kind of help each other out, or is it kind of a little mixture of everything?
It's definitely a mix of both. There's certainly a competitive edge to it, to have the best blog and to be the best. But at the same time, we're all friendly and we all help each other out. And, we always give each other a shout out whenever we can. So we're definitely friends, but we have that competitive edge as well.
Absolutely. And so have you always been into fashion then?
Well, when I was in high school, I wore the Jinkos, the big old skater pants.
I love those.
And a Freddy Krueger shirt, black and red, and the arm warmers. I was very, what some termed gothic. And some people say that my obsession with fashion and style started after that when I moved to college. But, I would say even that is fashion and style because I was expressing myself through my clothing. And then I just grew into different stylistic phases as I got older.
What would you say right now is your biggest or greatest fashion influence?
Different fashion blogs, especially late afternoon. The first one that I mentioned. This Time Tomorrow is another good fashion blog, and I loved the Man Repeller. The first time I heard about the Man Repeller, I thought it was the most ridiculous idea for a blog. But this girl has taken, her name is Leandra, she lives in New York, and she wears these crazy outfits that just don't make any kind of sense, but they work because she just owns it. And that's the kind of style that I'm trying to get to. And right now my style is very eclectic, kind of rocker chic, sweet girly, depends on, what laundry I've done.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to get to a place where I'm so comfortable with what I'm wearing that it doesn't matter what I'm wearing. It just always looks like couture,
So, I mean, do fashion bloggers technically determine the fashion? I mean, do people look at them and say, okay, I'm going to can they start a fashion trend, basically?
Definitely. Fashion bloggers have a huge influence on today's style. There are brands that spend hundreds of thousands of dollars making sure that bloggers are wearing their clothing. Some of these bigger bloggers that I mentioned, like Late Afternoon and This Time Tomorrow, most of their wardrobes are provided by brands that want them to wear their clothing because they have 10,000 plus followers.
Yeah.
And when you have that big of a following, what you're wearing is going to make a difference. So, these brands, some of them have made their entire name through fashion bloggers who supported them when they started. So fashion bloggers, they're the magazines of the future, basically.
So, and we were kind of even touching on that before we started recording. I was kind of asking you about any fashion podcasts or and whatnot. And is there? I mean, so there really is a big demand for people to read blogs. I mean, I guess blogging in your thing, in your eyes, blogging isn't dead or anything. I mean, blogging would you say is growing as a way of getting information out there?
It's definitely growing, especially with fashion blogging where it's so image driven. Most blogs do have some kind of text to go with it, especially on mine where I do the trend education and the style analysis and whatnot. But it's primarily image-driven, and people take those images and they use them as inspiration for their own wardrobe. So there's definitely a big demand. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of fashion blogs across the world. Just about every girl who has a computer has some kind of blog, and it's usually fashion or style-driven. So there's a huge demand within that, to have the best blog. And
so how do you set yours apart from another one and another one and another one? How do you make sure everybody comes to yours?
That's definitely a challenge with a fashion blog because there are so many. So the key to setting yourself apart is to have your own voice. Don't try to copy Liz of Late Afternoon. You have to be Jennifer of Frayed Threads. You've got to write your own way. You've got to take your own images. You've got to wear your own outfits. That's another thing is, people don't want to see the same outfit from blog to blog. You've got to be unique and be yourself, and you've got to have great content. You know, it can't be, if you're writing, no grammatical errors, use your spell check. You know, you've got to be good. You're going to be really, really good.
Do you think that turns people off, bad grammar and all that on
It does
blogs?
me. It does me really bad.
Really? I've never really cared about that while reading a blog personally, but it is interesting to hear feedback from somebody else.
What do you think the hardest part?
With balancing a full-time job and doing a blog is?
You know, I've been thinking about that a lot over the last few weeks, because there are these girls who have full-time jobs and these amazing blogs, and I always wonder how they can do it. But I've noticed the key to having a really successful blog is having a life outside of it. People don't want someone who spends all their time behind a computer just typing stuff into it and putting up pretty pictures. You know, they want someone who has substance and who's real. And so basically what you've got to do is really prioritize and differentiate between, you know, time for your job, time for your blog, and time for yourself. And then you have to make that time that you allot for your blog really matter. You have to make sure that, you know, you're posting when you say you're going to post, and that you're using your social media platforms to the best of your ability. So it's all about time management, really.
How often do you make a blog post, or is there like a set amount that you try to do every week or every day, or I mean, how does that work with blogging?
I try really hard to get up about 3 posts a week. Most fashion bloggers post more than that. I've noticed most of them post 5 to 7 times a week, but most fashion blogs are also primarily image driven. Like I said before, you know, you won't get a whole lot of text on most blogs, but with mine, where I have posts that are a lot more in depth, I generally do about 3 or 4 a week. On a good week, I try for that.
And obviously, since it's your own thing, I mean, it just like, you know, I'll use my podcast as an example. If you're not in the mood to do one, you don't have to do one. You know, nobody's over your shoulder, or not your shoulder, but with a whip.
Right.
Come on, get a post up. You know, you want to have good content. You know, one thing I wanted to touch on before I forget is fashion in Salt Lake City. Okay, you're a fashion blogger. You see a lot of different fashion trends come and go through Salt Lake, and you were mentioning the magazine Travel and Leisure. They rated Salt Lake City, or I don't know what the term you used, rated as the second worst dressed city in the U.S.
Yes.
What was the first worst dressed?
You know, I'm not sure.
I was just wondering what we compared to, or what, you know. But
I don't.
What do you think the worst part about Salt Lake City fashion is? What do you think some bad fashion styles or trends are here?
It's a lot of jeans, T-shirts, and sneakers. And, you know, that's not necessarily bad, but what's bad about it is most of it doesn't fit right. Or it's dirty, or it's old, or, you know, it's...
Maybe they're just trying to save some money. Right?
But you can go vintage or thrift shopping and save a lot of money and get some really cute stuff. And I think that it just comes from people either not caring or not knowing that there are so many great local shops and thrift shops that carry clothing that really is really cute for really cheap. I admit, I'm a DI shopper. You know, I like to go to DI,
absolutely.
and if you dig through those racks for long enough, you're going to find some pretty cute stuff.
So I'm a guy, and I mean, I've seen your fashion. I've seen a handful, obviously, of fashion blogs. Most of them are geared towards females. So how do I know where to start?
There are actually some male fashion blogs.
Besides like GQ or something. That's just, come on, that's just like totally ridiculous. I'm not going to dress like that. I'm not going to wear my hair like they have or wear the fancy watches. And I mean, so there are some dudes that do fashion blogs. Then.
It's true. There are. But, you know, to me, the key to guy style is, you know, wearing clothes that are clean, that fit you right, and that aren't ancient. You know, a pair of really nice dark wash denim jeans on a white t-shirt and maybe a leather jacket, that is the sexiest, most stylish thing in the world for a guy. It really is so easy. You just have to make sure that your clothes are clean, they're not rumpled, you know, make sure they fit.
What if oversized is their fashion, though?
Well, that can work too. As long as you work it with confidence, honestly, anything can be your style and can work.
I'm just curious. Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, I just, because there's so many different styles and fashions. It's like you never know. Well, is this out of style or is this out of style? Is this okay to wear? Is this shirt too tight, too loose?
It's true, and there's a big difference between.
Or some of us guys get beer guts, and, it's like, how do you work with that?
You can really work around that kind of stuff, and there's a big difference between fashion and style. Fashion is expensive, style is not. Fashion changes on a daily basis. Style is eternal. It's all about knowing what works for you, regardless of the trends. And that might mean spending an entire afternoon at the mall in the fitting rooms trying on every piece of clothing in the store to see what cuts are going to fit you best and flatter you the most.
And so you should probably take a female friend with you for advice.
Probably,
if you're a single guy or somebody with some sort of fashion sense.
Or just hire a stylist.
Well, okay, so you can hire a stylist. I mean, is it okay, like say I was to go to, I can't even think of a place, somewhere where I'm trying on clothes and I'm by myself. Is it typical? I mean, do you ask the workers, hey, does this look good? I mean, is that a weird request?
I ask them all the time because
Yeah.
I always go shopping by myself. I don't think it's a weird request at all. That's what they're there for.
Yeah.
That's their job, is to make sure that you look your best when you leave their store. So some of them might be a little weirded out just because it's not a question they get very often in my experience.
Yeah.
But
Do you think they're always telling the truth, though?
Yes, usually, unless they're making commission. Okay, but every store that I've been into where they weren't making commission, they were very honest with me and gave me a lot of feedback because they knew I was going to drop a lot of cash in there anyway. So they were really good about giving me feedback and telling me what looked good with what and what didn't. So in my experience, they're usually pretty honest.
And do these stores that you mentioned, you go to DI and you probably hit up Savers and whatnot. Do you think, besides the thrift stores, do you think some of these other stores know who some of the fashion bloggers are in the area? So they're like, maybe treat them a little bit better and be like, oh, she's a fashion blogger or something like that. I'm just curious if you notice any difference or with the way you're treated or anything, if people find out you're a fashion blogger.
Yes, there's a little bit of a difference, and I think that's more because they know that we understand style, whereas most Utahns, I mean, even going back to Salt Lake being the second worst dressed city in America, most Utahns don't really care that much about style or don't seem to. But when you go into a store and the people working there, especially the owners, know that you appreciate fashion and style as much as they do, they definitely treat you a little bit better. And you don't have to have a fashion blog to be treated better, to understand style. Just treat them with respect and show that you know a little bit about their field, and they generally will be pretty nice to you.
What motivates you? It kind of back to the full-time job and blogging and just staying on top of all this. What motivates you as a person?
I really want to turn this into a career for me. Blogging is by no means my end goal. Neither is, right now I'm an administrative assistant. That's not what I want to do for the rest of my life. I don't want to spend my life working for someone else's dream. What I would like to do is turn my blog, Frayed Threads, into a portfolio for both fashion writing and styling, and eventually launch my own business as a stylist and maybe land a career somewhere working as a writer for a fashion magazine or fashion website. And so right now I'm really pushing myself, and I've noticed my writing has gotten a lot better over the last few months as I've written more and learned more about who I am and what I really want to do with my blog. And so just by doing better and getting the feedback that I'm getting, that motivates me to keep going.
Isn't it? It's awesome to get nice feedback, isn't it?
Really
I mean,
is.
it really is, and it's the same way with what I do. It's that one email or that one comment on a post, that one like on a photo. There's something nice about that goes a long ways, and I've learned that with what I do. It's like, okay, I like it, so I try to reciprocate it to other people. You mentioned getting out on other platforms like social media. What you use Facebook, and I think you're on Twitter as well, right?
Yes.
What do you like better, just out of curiosity? Are you a Twitter or Facebook person?
I like Twitter because I feel like I have more interaction with people on Twitter. And I know people comment on posts and whatnot on Facebook, but on Twitter, you can talk to people who aren't necessarily your friends.
Yeah.
I have a couple of, famous stylists that I follow on Twitter. And we started talking, and now they follow me back, and we have a dialogue going. And so it's fun to be able to connect with people that you otherwise wouldn't know or wouldn't ever get to meet. And I feel like Twitter is a much better medium for that.
It's not so intimidating to send an @ reply to somebody, I notice. I've been on Twitter for, over 5 years, and it's one of my favorite mediums. I was talking to recently, I had a podcast, the Landan Show in here, and we were talking about Twitter, and they just didn't understand. Some people just don't get it. They just don't, I don't understand it. And Facebook, people tend to be a little more private. Twitter, it's a little more open. And a lot of times you don't always know who you're talking to, but it doesn't really matter. You don't need to always put a picture with. So what advice would you give somebody? Let's say a friend came up to you and they said, hey, I want to start a fashion blog, or I just want to start a blog. What advice would you give to them? Maybe things you've learned, a couple of tips.
Number one, first and foremost, know what you want out of the blog before you hit publish on your first post. My biggest problem in growing my blog has been that when I started it, I didn't really know what I wanted it to be. So I've kind of meandered my way through a few different things and floundered along. And finally, a few years later after starting it, I've come to a point where I really know what I want and I'm getting in the groove and things are working out. But I feel like if I'd taken the time to figure it out before I started, things would have gone a lot more smoothly. So definitely know what you want out of the blog and why you're starting it, whether it's for business, for fashion, you want to turn it into a career, or if it's just a personal hobby. Just know what you want.
But can't you go back and you could delete posts if you don't like what you post, I guess.
That's true, but I feel like personally, to me, that kind of takes away from the authenticity of the blog and the integrity of it, because it's also fun to go back and see that journey. You know, in the end, a blog is a personal web journal. So it's fun to go back to my first post in 2009 and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I wore that. That's part of the fun of a blog, is being able to see how far you've come.
Or you can just look through your old photos from the 80s or the 90s and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I wore those Jinkos or those, LA Gear shoes or something. So, and you also mentioned before we recorded, you guest blog on some different blogs, or what blogs are they? Is it a consistent thing, or is it kind of a sporadic? Talk about that for a second.
It's been sporadic, but it's definitely becoming more consistent. Guest posting on other blogs and website is one of my favorite things about blogging, because it affords me the opportunity to reach an audience that I wouldn't otherwise have. And of course, it builds my portfolio, and I also get to connect with other professionals in the industry. So that's why I love guest posting. I've done a little bit for independent fashion bloggers. It's basically an online database for fashion bloggers.
And what's their website?
HeartIFB.com.
HeartIFB, excellent.
And I also am writing an article for The Indie Chicks. It's called theindiechicks.com. It's a new online magazine for badass, empowered, confident women.
Excellent.
And I really like their whole platform and their website. And I'm writing the article right now, and hopefully it'll be published in the next couple of weeks. I'm also writing an ebook. Forgot about that earlier.
No, talk about that for a second.
My first ebook, I'm hoping to have it done by the end of the month. If not the end of the month, definitely by Valentine's Day. It'll be available for download on my blog, and it'll be free. It's Trenducation. Sorry, let me start that over.
No, fine.
My ebook is called Trenducation Spring Semester 2013. And what it is, I'm taking the trends and the fashion and the style of this spring and putting it into basically a fashion book for dummies. So if you don't know anything about style and you'd like to get into it, this is the book for you. Or even if you do and you want the Bible to all things spring fashion, this is going to be that book. And it's not going to be really long. I'm thinking maybe 100 pages, just going over all of the key elements of spring style.
And is that something, like you said, you'll be able to probably get that from your website? Is that something, I don't know a whole lot about ebooks, but you can read it on any smartphone or iPad or Kindle or something. Now, what if somebody wanted to guest blog on your blog? Do you ever do guest bloggers on your blog?
Yes, I love having guest bloggers on. So I just would need them to email me with their name and what they want to blog about. Obviously, I'd like it to be fashion-oriented or even blogging-oriented. If you have blogging tips that you'd like to share with the world, that would be okay too. Just email me. My email address is jennifer@frayed-threads.com.
Excellent. So, yeah, you heard that. If you're listening and you want a guest spot on her blog.
And I'm trying to get into a little bit of street style too. So if you'd like to post your own outfit photos on my blog, that would be cool too. So email me if you'd like to do that.
Now, just a little, I always like to find out a little bit about
The person I'm talking to. Besides blogging and fashion, what are some other hobbies and interests of yours?
I have a 3-year-old nephew who is my favorite person in the world, and when I'm not blogging or at work, I'm playing with him, and we're watching TV, we're running around the house, we're gonna go sledding this weekend. So he's just adorable. He's the light of my life.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Flying.
Flying.
Definitely flying.
Any particular reason why? Or
I've always wanted to learn how to pilot a plane. And I figure if I could fly, I could just skip all of that. I wouldn't have to worry about getting a license or anything. I could just fly on my own. So,
what's one food you would never eat or that you try to avoid eating?
Guacamole. It looks like a giant sneeze.
But do you eat avocados?
No.
So just no avocados in general? But
No.
See, I love avocados.
if you could witness any event, past, present, future,
what event would you like to witness?
I would like to cross the Delaware with George Washington. That's just such an intense moment in time that I would love to have been there to feel what it really felt like. I'm a history nerd on top of everything else, so anything from the Revolutionary War, honestly, I would love to go back and experience.
See, a history. There's something I wouldn't expect from you.
I'm really nerdy.
No,
Very
that's great.
nerdy.
That's great. Besides a history nerd, what is something else that people listening, based off of what you said, or if they know you, what is something that about yourself that people wouldn't expect?
I'm also a computer nerd, and despite my extremely outgoing personality, I am painfully shy. Painfully.
I think a lot more people are shy than people realize. I think we all secretly are. We just try our hardest to come out of our shell. Let's see. Here's an interesting question, and I might not know the answer, or I might not know who you're talking about. But if you could trade closets with anybody, like a fashion person or a designer, who would it be? Like if you could acquire their wardrobe.
Oh my gosh. Kim Kardashian. I'm not a huge fan of her personally.
But you love her wardrobe.
But I love her clothes. I would die for her closet.
If Hollywood were to make a movie about your life, who would you like to see play the lead role as you?
Tina Fey.
Tina Fey, excellent. She's a great actor.
What music inspires you?
I listen to just about everything. I'm not a huge fan of rap unless it's Eminem, but I love rock music and a little bit of pop, some indie, some country. I'll listen to anything. Right now, my Pandora station is set on Matchbox 20.
Oh, yeah, excellent.
What's your favorite song to belt out in your car when you're by yourself?
Imagine Dragons' new song, Radioactive. Totally my favorite song of the moment. It is amazing and so catchy. I was actually listening to it on my way down here. So,
what do you think Salt Lake City's biggest hidden secret is?
Their biggest hidden secret,
or like a place that you think doesn't get recognition, or is just kind of that isn't known about very well, but that maybe should be or something?
Well, there is actually a little park in downtown. I can't remember the exact address. I think it's on 400 South. It's really close to where Spoonme used to be, and no one really knows about it. But it's full of sculptures that were carved by a gentleman who used to be a member of the Quorum of the 12, I think it was, in the LDS Church. And there's this sculpture of the Sphinx, only it has Joseph Smith's face on it.
Huh.
So, and it's all kinds of weird little statues like that are things from the LDS Church.
Yeah.
And he's taken them and turned them into, things from mythology and whatnot. So nobody really seems to know about it. It's kind of out of the way, kind of hard to find, but I think it's called Glad Park.
Okay.
That's what I want to.
And you like it's one of your favorite parks, I guess, or kind of.
It's been a couple of years since I've been there, but it was definitely intriguing, and I definitely want to go back.
What do you miss most about being a kid?
Oh my gosh, playing with my nephew makes me think about this all the time. I miss just being carefree, and not really knowing what the world was like, and just being able to run around and play and pretend and just think that everything's okay because the people that you love are there and they're taking care of you. That sense of security and innocence, I think, is what I miss the most about being a kid.
I think a lot of us could agree with that one. What do you think the hardest thing that you've ever done is?
Oh, wow. The hardest thing that I've ever done. That is a good question.
Kind of a tough one, I guess.
Yeah, I would have to say quitting school was the hardest thing I've ever done because, most people say that going off to school or moving out from home is the hardest thing I've ever done. But no, making the decision to actually leave school because I couldn't really settle on a major and I was just wasting money.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to admit defeat. I didn't want to come home and say, Mom, I need to leave school for a little while and think about it. But I owned up to my indecision, and I left school, and a few years later, I finally figured out what I want to do with my life, and I feel like now I can go back to school with this new sense of resolve and actually ace my classes and make it worth it because college is so much money.
Yeah,
you don't want to just go and waste your time and, do okay in all of your classes and be there for too long. You need to go and you need to get it done and you need to do well.
That I could see that as being a very, very tough decision of whether it's the right decision or not. There's a few more questions here as we kind of wrap it up. I call them the last question. Kind of basically the last book that you read. What was the last book that you've read?
I'm ashamed to say it was 50 Shades of Grey.
At least you're honest. The last TV show that you watched.
Angel.
Oh, are you a Buffy and Angel fan?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Interesting. And the last movie you watched?
The last movie I watched. The Lion King 1.5 with my nephew.
There's a Lion King 1.5.
Yes, it talks about Timon
I didn't even know there was a 1.5.
It's the story of Timon and Pumbaa.
Okay. And the last restaurant you ate at?
Does McDonald's count?
Sure. Sure. And the last website you visited, besides your own?
Besides my own, it was probably UPS.com at work today, tracking down a package.
The last CD or record that you bought?
Oh my gosh, I can't remember the last time I bought a CD.
Well, yeah, and that's probably an unfair question because you mentioned Pandora, so you probably just keep that Pandora going.
Pandora.
Well, excellent. Again, your website is www.frayed-threads.com.
Yes.
Which I will list on the I Am Salt Lake website in the episode show notes. And then you're on Facebook. Can people connect with you on Facebook at all? Or
Definitely. I am on Facebook. There's a page for the blog on Facebook. It's facebook.com/whatever/frayedthreads13 is
Okay.
the username for the page.
And again, I'll get that if you want to send me over that link, and then that way I can get the right one for that, as well as your Twitter.
Sure thing.
Because I'm assuming people can connect with you on Twitter too.
Yes, I'm on Twitter. My username on Twitter is fashion_nerd13.
And so, like, they can come to you say if they want some fashion tips, or they want some suggestions or ideas, or if they want to tell you anything. I mean, what else? I mean, anything else that maybe we didn't touch? Again, I'm not the biggest fashion expert, so I know I probably could have talked about a lot more fashion ideas or thoughts or anything of that sort. But I mean, what are some fashion trends coming that we should watch out for?
Well, I've noticed that every year, as soon as the holidays are over, people are done with winter fashion. They want spring fashion right away, and it doesn't matter that we're only 2 weeks into the official winter season. The spring trends start popping up. So the biggest thing that I can really recommend right now is mix your spring trends like lace and sundresses and the lighter colors like pastels and the sherbet hues. Mix those with your winter colors and your winter clothes. If you want to wear a lace dress, put an olive green military jacket over it. If you want to wear bright denim pants, put a cozy cardigan on top. If you want to wear a white dress, sure, wear black tights and some cute little moto boots and a black moto jacket, and you're all winterized. So right now, it's really all about mixing the winter with the spring. And I actually have a post up on my blog about that right now.
Excellent. So everybody go over to the blog, check it out, and get some tips from Jennifer. Just out of curiosity, is there like a good app, or is there what's the best way to read blogs? I don't read a whole lot of blogs, but you've inspired me to maybe start reading some. I mean, is a Google Reader, is that still popular to read blogs through, or no?
I use Google Reader a little bit. I'm kind of a purist, and I like to go visit the blog itself and see what it really looks like. I feel like you get more content and more interactive out of that. But Google Reader is a good one. You can always set up an RSS feed through anyone. There's Paper Blog. There are a bunch of them. I'm not really sure of a good reader for your phone. There's Bloglovin. That's, I think, the most popular one.
For like an iPhone or an Android or something
yeah,
like that.
and you can use it online as well. You just go to bloglovin.com. You sign up. You can download the app. You follow all of your favorite blogs on Bloglovin. All of the major ones are on there. And then you can get them on your phone. You can just read them through Bloglovin on your computer. That's a lot easier than going to the individual sites.
Excellent. Well, I thank you very much for coming on to the I Am Salt Lake podcast and kind of showing a different side to my guests on here. I mean, I haven't had a blogger, let alone a fashion blogger, on my podcast. So I appreciate you reaching out and your interest to come on, and hopefully listeners have learned a little bit, kind of that. What's going on in the Salt Lake City area, or surrounding areas, and there's people that are making stuff happen. So get in touch. I think that's the biggest thing for people right now, is to get in touch with you if they have any interest.
Definitely. Anyone who needs any style tips or fashion advice or help with a blog or writing, anything, I'm happy to get involved with anyone who feels like my skills would be of assistance to them.
Well, thank you very much, Jennifer. Anything else before we close out here?
Nope. I just want to say thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Again, you can go to the website, iamsaltlake.com/episode 36. I'm going to give all the notes to get in touch with Jennifer and her blog, where you can connect to that at on the I Am Salt Lake podcast website, iamsaltlake.com/episode 36. Thank you very much, Jennifer, for coming on and sharing your story, giving some fashion tips and suggestions. Fun conversation. Really neat to kind of have you on as the first blogger on the I Am Salt Lake podcast. Hopefully I get some more blogs on the podcast. If you're a local blogger, get in touch with me. Drop me an email, iamsaltlake@gmail.com. Love to bring you on. Love to have you share your story and share with the rest of the world kind of what your blog is all about. Also, our voicemail, 385-202-5926. Give me a call. Tell me what you think. Feedback is what keeps me going and keeps me alive. So, anyways, if you do like the project that I'm doing, kick over $1 or $2. IamSaltLake.com/donate. It's really easy. Hit that PayPal button. $1 or $2 keeps the project going and keeps it afloat. This isn't the easiest, cheapest project to do, but it's been really fun, and I love bringing it to you guys every Sunday and Wednesday right now. Speaking of that, I will be back on Wednesday with a new episode showcasing a new individual. But before I do that, I'm going to play a song by Folk Hogan, Long Walk Home, probably my favorite Folk Hogan song. So I thought it'd be a good song to play to end the episode out, especially with their upcoming show with the Reverend Horton Heat. So this is Long Walk Home by Folk Hogan. Take a listen. Check them out, folkhogan.com, episode 25 of the podcast. If you're a local band, get in touch with me and send on over your CD. I'd love to play it on a future episode of the podcast, maybe end out a future episode. Anyways, IamSaltLake.com. That's going to connect with us. Like I've mentioned 500 billion times before, this is Folk Hogan, Long Walk Home. You guys have a good night.